This is PopHealth Week, streaming live on Healthcare Now Radio. I'm Gregg Masters, your co-host and executive producer, and in the virtual studio is my partner and co-founder, Fred Goldstein, lead host and president at Accountable Health, LLC. PopHealth Week is where the movers and shakers of population health gather. We're all about those real, unfiltered conversations with the people shaping the industry, whether you're a payer, provider, patient vendor, or part of the regulatory community. This is your hub for the freshest strategies and innovations in population health management. Want to stay connected? Head over to popupstudio.productions or shoot me a message on Twitter via @GreggMastersMPH, and that is Gregg with 2 G's. You can reach out to Fred directly on Twitter via @FSGoldstein or visit www.accountablehealthllc.com. Today, we're joined by Ashley Reynolds, the Chief Product and Experience Officer at Glytec, a health tech company revolutionizing the management of glycemic control in healthcare settings. Ashley is an acknowledged expert in digital health and the use of technology to promote health and patient engagement. He developed multiple award-winning digital health applications for population health, receiving many industry accolades, including CES's Mobile App Showdown winner, CTIA Hot for the Holidays finalist, CTIA Emerging Technology Awards, and first place Digital Health Awards Gold. Fred, the mic is yours.
Thanks so much, Gregg and Ashley. Welcome to PopHealth Week.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going fantastic. It is so great to get you on this week. We've known each other for a long time, and I'm just going to tell the audience right now, you're one of the most amazing people I ever had the opportunity to work with. And I want to thank you for that because I remember it all the time, and your experience, background, and expertise is fantastic. So thanks for that.
That was very kind. Thank you. You are also one of the best people I've ever worked with. The most knowledgeable person I've ever run across as it relates to population health. And been in the industry a long time, seen a lot of stuff, and you've persevered, and it's wonderful to see. So,
well, thanks. Well, why don't we start with your background? Go ahead and give our audience a sense of what you've done.
Sure. So I have a very non-traditional way of arriving at my current point in my career. I started out as a pre-med student, went to college in DC, and wound up not being able to afford it. And so I joined the military and became a Navy corpsman, which is kind of like a medic, the combat medic. You run out on the field and you take care of sick and injured soldiers, Marines, and sailors. And that was a fantastic experience, got me into the healthcare environment all the way back 30-something years ago. And I left the military as a certified EMT and started working in the emergency department at St. Vincent's Medical Center here in Jacksonville, Florida, and began my nursing career. And subsequently, over the years, worked through intensive care and critical care areas like the emergency department, and found this kernel of passion in me where I was taking care of these patients that had arrived in front of me at the end of a lifetime of bad decisions. And I thought to myself, I could certainly be effective in helping this person with cardiac disease or helping this person with a stroke, but wouldn't it be more important, or could it be just as helpful to find out why they made those decisions in the first place and maybe even intervene so that we wouldn't have to be in that situation? And if I could do that, that might mean even more positive influence in the world. So I started down the Pop Health Plan journey and worked at health plans in sort of disease management, managed care back in the day, and then worked in quality improvement. And over the years, subsequently continued to pursue my education and wound up in a position where I received my doctorate, my PhD from the University of Florida in nursing, but with a specific emphasis on how you construct digital tools so that they're effective at producing behavior change. And I thought that that would be a really great way to take my love of population health, my love of technology, which was exploding at that time. The advent of the iPhone happened during this period. Mobile applications became ubiquitous. We had connected and wearable devices now, and all of these things felt like they were really cutting edge. And so I was attracted to that as a clinician and also as a scientist. And I wanted to weave all that together to end up where I am today. So subsequently have had leadership positions at health tech startups, leading to successful exits. Most recently working for a company called BioIQ, which was an at-home health testing company that supported population health efforts, like health plan population health efforts for early screening and identification of disease, and then getting them into care sooner to help them, obviously stave off any potential downstream effects. Obviously, this is right in line with what we're doing here at my newest company, Glytec, where I am the Chief Product and Experience Officer.
So, you talk about with your background, and especially I remember you getting that degree and focusing on digital and how you can use it to influence people, which was what we were trying to play with so much back then. But tell us a little bit about Glytec and who are they? What do they do?
So Glytec has been around for a little while. It is a company that started off really with a very compelling story. The founder, Robbie Booth, and a physician who is on our board, Dr. Bodie, had really got together and started thinking about how can we make the treatment and management of insulin in an inpatient setting easier for people. If you look back in the day at the way things were done in an inpatient setting, many of these things were done on paper protocols. People were hand calculating insulin and adjusting insulin based on previous blood glucose readings. All of this, if you do it correctly, can be complicated. And when you're talking about nurses who are trying to deliver care, especially with large patient populations, 5, 6, 7 patients, maybe even more, it becomes really difficult to be that precise with the insulin dosing and still be able to do the rest of your work. And so Dr. Bodie comes from a family of endocrinologists that's been around for a very long time, and he is one of the foremost experts on insulin management. He's like, let's find a way to use technology to help people automatically adjust and dose insulin, not, like a sliding scale where you just take a sugar and then you say, oh, well, if it falls within this range, you do something, but actually get to a level of precision on dosage recommendations that, with the main aim of getting somebody who is out of a target range into target as quickly as possible. And then while they're in an inpatient setting, keep them in that target range for as long as possible until they're discharged. And that has a lot of benefits to the patient and also makes it easier for the providers and the nurses to manage a patient because they don't have as many negative effects when they have high degrees of glucose variability during their inpatient stay.
And so, talk about setting up this system, and as because with all these tech things you always see, somebody comes up with a system, but at the end of the day, does it work? So how has this been shown to work? Does it need to be FDA approved? What are the things around that?
So our software is a software as a medical device. And because it is making precision dosage recommendations, it absolutely has to be FDA cleared. And so part of the process of that is submitting all of this documentation to the FDA and making sure that we have an established quality system, that we have all of the policies, procedures, and in place to be able to protect the public if needed, if there were any problems with the software. And in fact, that's one of the main advantages of using a company like Glytec to provide this level of insulin titration guidance within an inpatient or even an outpatient setting, because you know that you're getting a trusted, reliable partner that has gone through the FDA process, so that if there is something that happens, there's a way to quickly react to that and protect the public.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, that's fantastic. You've taken through FDA approval. That's what we're telling people, if you're going to put something out there, obviously anything medical, you got to do that. If you're making claims, do some real studies and get this stuff approved. So Ashley, who typically purchases this product? Who's using it?
So it's a great question because, as we're moving forward in looking into the future at our other products that we're bringing to market besides besides Glucomander, which is the insulin titration software, but our command center, which is our newest flagship product, and I'll talk a little bit about that later, there are different sort of user and buyer personas for each. So in a hospital setting, our main customers are the patient safety officers, clinical quality, our CNOs, CEOs, anyone who cares about ensuring that patients are well managed while they're being treated in that healthcare institution, and that they're discharged as quickly as possible and as safely as possible. So anyone who cares about that is going to be part of that purchasing decision. And now with the advent of the CMS, ECQM hospital harm measures, there is this significant tailwind to the effort that we're bringing to bear, because these are driving a lot of focus at the inpatient setting to say, hey, look, we really consider these to be avoidable sort of never events. If that's the case, then we need to be putting in place processes, technologies, and procedures that will enable us to limit how often we have those avoidable hyper and hypoglycemic events.
So, and yeah, when CMS got into this, obviously it becomes a critically important issue. And they're right. You're managing these people. This should not be occurring, these issues we're facing. So let's make sure we put the best systems in place or the processes to ensure that doesn't happen. And is this typically integrated with various EMRs or sit outside the EMRs? How does it work?
So it's critically important that the timeliness of the data that we are producing and the instructions that are being provided, especially with Glucomander and with the command center that will be coming later, are tightly integrated into the EHR. So we are integrated with all the big players and can integrate with any of them, but frequently integrated with Epic, Cerner, Allscripts, any number of Meditech, any number of EHRs. We believe that in order for a solution like ours to be effective, it needs to be integrated with the workflow of the daily user. And so you don't really get there unless you have that deeper level of integration and timeliness of data refreshing in the system.
And I believe, if I remember right, looking at your website, there is some AI potentially involved in this, or advanced analytics.
So that is one of the most exciting things that we're doing now. And that was the other product that I'm mentioning now is, I mentioned before, is our command center. So if you think about Glucomander, the product, as insulin titration software, it's really getting to precision insulin dosing recommendations for a patient. The command center is a whole house real-time view of what is going on throughout a healthcare system, highlighting key metrics of interest for clinical practitioners, but also the executives at the hospital to understand across the institution how well they're doing, and for individual practitioners, where they should focus their attention first. So if you think about a hospitalist who's trying to round on patients, going through their day in the beginning of the day, they have their patient list. They're going to look through it. They usually are hunting and pecking through the EHR to try to find out, okay, what happened with this person? What is there anything I need to pay attention to? And while EHRs were originally intended to be supportive of the healthcare workflow, what has happened is that they've become increasingly big and complicated and not intuitive. And so for people who are trying to just drill into where I should focus first, it becomes increasingly difficult to do so. So entering in advanced predictive algorithms, enter in advanced intelligent solutions that help use the data that we're already getting from our integrations with our partners, because we're deeply integrated into their lab system and to their EMR. But then taking that information and using our 16 plus years of experience in expert glycemic management and control, we can come up with models that help us predict who will have hypoglycemic event before it actually occurs. And that is powerful, because now we're talking about not reacting to a situation that has occurred, but preventing the event before it occurs. And you can see how very easily that could become a tremendous time saver and cost saver, and ultimately a quality of life saver for the patient who's experiencing or could be experiencing this never event.
So actually, when you're talking about predicting now, is it still around glycemic control and diabetes management? Or is it broader? Are you looking broader? Where does that thing go? And how far have you gotten with the data on that predictability to ensure that the reliability is really high and it's on target?
So I'll answer the first question with no, we would never want to stop with one set of data. We're at a point where we recognize that there's an opportunity to look in other places, but we'll only do that if it makes sense for us as a company, and also that the market really demands and needs that from us. So we will be systematic and thoughtful in which other types of models we would bring into this. As far as the modeling that we have in place now, we have several supportive studies that we have done in partnership with several academic institutions, many of which have published on our website and are available for anybody to review. But the validation of the models is ongoing. Obviously, this is an iterative process that will continue to get better as we go. We're always keeping an eye out for things like bias, trying to avoid biasing our models with, as we all know, some of the inherent dangers of using highly intelligent predictive modeling. So we're being very thoughtful about that as well. But we're confident that we are getting to a level of specificity and predictability with our modeling that it could be quite clinically valid. So.
And you've talked a lot about the inpatient situation and what goes on there, and obviously critical, and with CMS monitoring that's critical. But we know also, diabetes is just a huge issue, especially in the outpatient perspective. So what are you doing there?
So we have explored accessing and delivering care in an outpatient setting. And we do have a couple of pilot locations where we have done that. We do have some of our software that is cleared for use in an outpatient setting. I think we are also exploring and are more excited about some of the opportunities to partner with others in this space who have really just nailed it. Think about PopHealth programs that have had a lot of opportunity to grow and develop full integrations with point of care testing devices and have strong PopHealth supporting structures around their data flows. So thinking about the care management component and linking that to the plan, because the moment we step out of the hospital and into an outpatient setting, the next thing is how do we link that to the care managers at the plan, right? So ultimately, what we want to do is we want to be a part of that patient journey where it makes sense for us to do it. I think that we'll probably get there with our partnerships and in our existing products as well. Right now, I would say that a majority of our outpatient solutions could be made stronger through partnerships.
Mm-hmm. And obviously, you have tremendous experience in building care management programs, designing these outpatient things, community health workers across a number of disease states. So essentially, you would sort of be the intelligent system within that broader built population health program.
Yeah, and I think one of the things to call out here is the opportunity for us to facilitate better handoffs as the patient transitions throughout the care journey, right? So if you think about a race where we're having a relay race, healthcare is a lot like that. You have experts at every stage, but it's those handoff points where all of the things go wrong. And so if we are embedded in the inpatient setting and we have a partnership with the outpatient setting, and we could help potentially identify using some advanced algorithms when a person is admitted to the hospital, what types of outpatient services they may potentially need, there may be an opportunity for us to start serving that up upon admission so that in the discharge planning process, it becomes even easier. And then that handoff can then go to the outpatient partner and or to the health plan, who's then going to handle them in a chronic care management type of environment. So we believe that we're a partner in this journey and trying to facilitate these handoffs as easily as possible so that we don't have any of that critical information that gets missed frequently.
Mm-hmm. And actually, we've talked a lot about the product and what the product does, but your other piece of the title is fascinating, experience. And, it's something I'm sure you hammered the heck out of that when you were working on your PhD, the experience of using an app. So how does that play into what Glytec is doing and your product?
So it really allows me to have influence over not just how people experience our product, but also just thinking about what it means to be a Glytec customer. How do we make sure that we keep you happy? How do we make sure that we're delivering on our promise to deliver value and savings to you as an organization and to deliver better outcomes? That experience role for me means that I have the ability to have a voice at the uppermost levels of the organization so that the voice of the customer is always heard. The voice of the patient is always heard. And as a registered, as a nurse, that is inherent to my DNA, that there's this advocacy component of what I am and what I do. And I want to make sure that that never gets lost in all of the business dealings and operations, things that happen. And, when you think about it, we have this sort of stance from an advocacy perspective that we believe that, diabetes is one of the most critical population health concerns of our lifetimes. We believe that every patient, regardless of status, race, income, or location, has the right to expert, clinical, quality diabetes management care with good outcomes, no matter where they are and no matter whether or not they can afford it. And we believe that as Glytec, we can be leaders in advancing that conversation throughout the country and in fact throughout the world. Like nobody does this better than Glytec does.
So how do you work and bring in that patient voice? Everyone's talking about getting the patient voice in, getting the provider voice in. How do you in your role do that?
So part of it is through just interactions and surveying with individuals, getting that feedback. We stay deeply connected through our client success teams in our existing customers' experience and making sure that we're checking in with them and surveying them. We monitor all inbound feedback and check for clues. If there's anything that we need to look for to make our experience better, we do that as well. And then we put all of that together in a strategy that helps guide our outbound approach and how we design and develop our products and how we interact and communicate with our customers.
That's fantastic. I want to get back to one thing you mentioned earlier around the data and bias. We've seen products out there in this space that had real issues because they didn't have a representative sample within it, and then the results they were putting out or the recommendations were not correct. Is that what you're getting at? You sort of ensure that you have this representative sample of data?
Yes, absolutely. We want to make sure that, especially as it relates to incidence and prevalence of specific conditions that are being used as part of the modeling, we absolutely want to make sure that there's representativeness of the population in that. It is important to remember, too, that there are certain segments of the population that are disproportionately affected by diseases like diabetes. And you would want to make sure that there was an adequate number of in the sampling and in the model to accurately reflect what needs to happen for them. One of the things that we're also exploring is just how do we take things like social determinant of health data and incorporate it into our modeling so that when we're talking about helping somebody maybe discharge to home, we're not necessarily just saying, you had diabetes treatment in the hospital and you should follow up with X, Y, or Z, but really taking a look at, you live in a particular zip code. You have these particular social determinant of health risks. Here are the 4 providers. One is a food bank and it's right down your street from you. Here's the transportation provider. This is the one you should probably go to. They're accepting new patients at this new pharmacy and they'll actually help you with your copay. So rather than just saying, go home, we actually look at you closely and say, okay, these are the places that are nearby you, that are convenient for you, or that fit with what your lived experience is, and help facilitate those discussions. And to me, we're not there yet. We're exploring a lot of the ways these models will work, but I'm super excited about that because to me, that sticks right in with, and you and I know this. We've been in patients' homes doing disease management with Medicaid populations. You and I both know that what people hear in the hospital, what their lived experience is like, is are two very different things. And if you don't understand that, and then you give people direction to go home, they're not going to be able to manage that condition well because you've forgotten some of the basic stuff about what they're dealing with. And I've been in patient homes. I know you've been in patient homes, and when you see that, that really changes your whole worldview as it relates to delivering care in an inpatient setting.
Yeah, I was thinking of the one slide we used to have before I knew what social determinants of health was, and it said people can't focus on their health because their life gets in the way. Let's focus on that first, and then we'll get back to their health. And in essence, it's it was a little early, but certainly making progress. Now, you sort of touched on two things that I wanted to finish up with, and one was, where does Glytec go next? What is out there, and what is exciting you about some of this stuff you're working on?
I really believe like our command center product is going to be the next generation of advanced analytics in helping identify who needs care while they are in an inpatient setting. If you think about the proliferation of different specialties in rural areas or underserved areas, and whether or not a hospital that has 50 beds in the middle of Missouri actually has an endocrinologist, right? Or actually has the access to somebody that could help make some of these more advanced, decisions around care. Our products could actually help support the clinicians that are in these environments that may not have access to it, or maybe they only have one endocrinologist that hops around to different locations. Then these other providers who are in the hospital would still have that amazing support. Now, that's not the only use case, but it's super powerful, I think, to get us to that sort of idea that we want to get everybody advanced glycemic care and control. We want cost savings. We want all that stuff too. But at the end of the day, we want patients to have a better clinical experience, a safe clinical experience. And I think the command center really helps because it allows people to identify and intervene without necessarily requiring them to dose insulin in a different way. They certainly could do that if they had the Glucomander product, but I think that there's a lot of power there. And then the opportunity for us to potentially expand these models beyond glycemic control to others, which it's an interesting question that you ask, because we are looking at those as well.
Well, I'd like to thank you so much for coming on, Ashley, and catching up a little bit. Really fantastic, the work you've done over your career and what you're doing now. So thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. It's very good to see you again, and I love the work you're doing here as well.
Thanks so much. And back to you, Gregg.
And that's a wrap for today, folks. A big shout out to our global audience for tuning in. A special thanks to Ashley Reynolds, PhD, MSN, RN, the Chief Product and Experience Officer at Glytec, an innovative health tech company revolutionizing the management of glycemic control in healthcare settings. To follow Ashley's work at Glytec, visit www.glytec, that's glytec.com, and connect on Twitter via @Glytec. If PopHealth Week resonates with you, we'd love your support. Give us a thumbs up on your favorite podcast platform. Share it with your network, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Remember, we're live on Healthcare Now Radio every weekday at 5:30 a.m., 1:30 p.m., and 9:30 p.m. Eastern. On behalf of Fred Goldstein and myself, Gregg Masters, stay safe, stay tuned, and we'll catch you next time.